Hey Jay, good morning, my friend.
Hello.
How are you doing today? How was your weekend?
Eh, regular.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Good. Hey, Relisha, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Right. All right, thank you for logging in. Thank you for logging in on time. We'll give it maybe 5 minutes or so, see who else we get. Hey, good morning, Ashlyn. Right, like I was saying, we'll give it about 5 minutes, see if we get anybody else logged on. I'll send out one more reminder. And then we will jump into it today, our last class of 2020. All right. So good morning again to all. So get yourself settled, use the restroom, get a snack, drink if you need to, refill your coffee. And then, like I said, about 5 minutes, we will jump into it. All right. Good morning again. Hey, good morning, Miss Cat. How are you today?
Hi, good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I am well, thank you. How was your weekend?
It was nice. I didn't really do much, so it was good. You look toasty with your sweater and hat on.
Oh, thank you. The sweater is some of my holiday cheer, and the hat is just because I was having a bad hair day this morning. So,
I
and
like it.
thankfully they match. So it's a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
But thank you, I appreciate it. Are you looking forward to the break?
Yes, definitely. I feel like I'm ready for a break, even just from my own like
I was gonna
schoolwork
say,
as
yeah, you
well.
guys are on break from UPenn now too, right?
Yeah, yeah. Our last week of classes and projects and all that were last week, so this is the first week without having to have class and all of that stuff too.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's always nice.
Yeah.
All right, now let me send.
How was your weekend?
It was good. We also did not do much. We just kind of like stayed snowed in. We had some friends over on Saturday. Um,
That's nice.
and yeah, that was about it. Watched some Christmas movies and all that good stuff.
Awesome.
All right, Allegiance, we'll give it about maybe 2 more minutes and then we will jump in here. I just sent out one final reminder, see if we get anybody else logged on. Okay. But while we are waiting, I will we'll put our do now question up on the screen here. All right, good morning. Who joined us? Sabrine, that's right. We got a 1-2 punch here on Mondays. Good morning to you. Welcome. All right, about another minute, and then we will jump in, see if we get any last minute attendees. While we're waiting, like I said, I will throw our do now question for today. So here is that. All right. Do you agree with this quote? Why or why not? From W.H. Auden, a poet is, before anything else, a person who is passionately in love with language. So think about poets, if you consider yourself a poet, maybe. Uh, do you resonate? Does this resonate with you when you think about poets, people who write poems, poetry? And don't forget that a poet doesn't have to just be somebody who writes, a poem in a book. It could be a rapper, it could be a songwriter, it could be an actor, it could be a speaker, whatever you think qualifies. So, do you agree with this quote when you think of all those people, all those types of people who we might call poets? Do you agree that they are passionately in love with language, or would you argue that it's something else? So take a few minutes and think about this and respond in the chat for me, please. Thank you very much. Another minute or two here. We'll check the chat, see if we get anything coming in yet. All right. Welcome, Gia. Your triumphant return since I haven't seen you in a minute. Glad you are back with us today. All right, we are talking about this do now question, and we have one response in the chat so far. Again, please make sure you tell me why or why not. I don't want to just see yes, I agree, or no, I don't agree. While I'm glad that you do or don't, we should be thinking, how can I defend my response? Because that is what it is all about when you progress outside of Yes Philly, whether it is into higher education or into the workforce or whatever. You should always be have to always be able to back up your thoughts and responses. So get in that practice now. So do you agree with this quote? Why or why not? A poet is, before anything else, a person who is passionately in love with language. Again, like I said, I only saw one response in the chat so far, so we'll take maybe another 2 minutes, see if we can get some more in there this morning as well. right, let's see if we got anything else in the chat here. All right. Spreen says, I agree because you have to want to do it. You got to be passionate about something to do it good. I agree. So if we could say if a poet is, devoting their whole life to publishing that poetry, they have to be in love with language because, how can you do it well if you're not passionate about it? Very, very good point. Anybody else agree or have similar thoughts or different thoughts? All right, let's see if we can get maybe one more response in the chat as well. Okay, so I'll leave it up here for about another minute, and let's see if we can get at least one more response for this. Do we agree with this quote or not? A poet is, before anything else, a person who is in love with language. Please think about it, and if you agree, tell me why in the chat. If you disagree, tell me that as well. All right, let's see if we got any more. And Ike has joined us as well. Good job, welcome. Oop, that is not what I meant to do. That's okay, we can check the chat either way. All right, we got one in there from Ashley as well. Those of you who are just joining us, we are talking about, let me share my screen again real quick so we can see. Talk about this quote right here. A poet is, before anything else, a person who is passionately in love with language. This is from W.H. Auden, and looks like Ashley and Sabrine both agree. Ashley said, because if you're passionate about something, that means you understand it and you know it. You have to understand language. Very true. Okay. Definitely have to have a good understanding of language to be a poet. And like Sabrine said, to do something well, you have to be passionate about it. So those things kind of go hand in hand. Right. I would also agree with this quote. I think poets see language maybe not differently than everybody else, but maybe they see it a little bit more in a little bit of a different lens, and they see kind of the beauty behind all the different ways we can use language, whether it's the words and phrases that we use, or even like how we punctuate and capitalize things. Like, if you've ever heard of the poets like E.E. Cummings or Emily Dickinson, right? So language can take on lots of different shapes and forms. So really good thoughts with this. If anybody has any other ones, please feel free to share as well in the chat. But really good job. Thank you, guys. Ladies and gents, all right, good morning, welcome. I'm just updating my attendance here. Right, Gianna joined us. I think some of us may be in the wrong link. Let me double check here. Namir's iPhone, is that Nazir? All right, I'm just making sure I got the right people here. And
Yeah, it's me.
all right, cool. Just making sure so I can get you on my attendance. And Ike, I think you may have the wrong link because I do not see you on my attendance list. So double check your link for second period, Monday, Thursday.
I'm still not getting no links.
Do you know
I don't
who?
Miss
You know what?
Miss Richardson sent the text out to all y'all to let y'all know, but I'm still not getting no links.
I did get that, yeah, because I know you are attending when you have me regularly. So I think my link is good. But do you know who you're supposed to have this period?
Actually, no.
All right. So
I'm about to check.
that's what I would double check first, and then see if you have that link for that teacher. And then if not, reach out to that teacher and just say, "Hey, I need the link for class. I was in the wrong one by mistake." Right? Miss Cat might be able to help you out with that as well. All right. So, ladies and gents, welcome again. Good morning. Good to see all of you again. Good to see some of you back after a brief absence. So, what we are doing this morning in our final English 4 class of 2020 is speaking of poetry, like we did in our Do Now. We are going to look at some poetry in Checkpoint 1. So, if you were with us in class Friday, then you know that we kind of went over annotating word choice in that poem by Billy Collins, Introduction to Poetry, and kind of practice that a little bit. If you missed that, it is on the class recording on YouTube, so you can go back there, check it out. Right. So what we're going to do today is use those same kind of practices to complete checkpoint 1. All right. So I'm going to share my screen in a sec here. And show you guys how to pull up our checkpoint where you're going to go. All right. So I'll put it in the chat, and I'll also show you on my screen share, but we are looking for checkpoint 1, word choice annotations on Summit. Okay. So that's going to look like this. All right. If you can see my screen, I have it on my student views, which should look like yours. Go to your year view. As always, find our class English 4. Here's our project, Pop Culture Poetry. Boom, right there. Okay. And then you should see word choice annotations right here. All right, checkpoint 1, which I believe everybody in here has been assigned. Okay. Click that, it'll bring you to a page that looks like this. All right. And now when you get here, you're going to need to open one other thing. So you want to go up to your clipboard at the top right, and you want to scroll down until you see canonical poems right here. Okay. And you want to click that, and then it'll bring you to a page that looks like this, and you should see all these links. All right. So these are the two things you should have open. And then when you get back, you can just hit this little X here. These are the two things you should have open: the checkpoint and the canonical poems resource, which you can find from that little clipboard up here. Okay. So I'll give everybody a few minutes to pull both of those up. When you get those pulled up on your end, please let me know in the chat. Give me a thumbs up or tell me that you got it, so I know you were on the right page. You're on the right track, I should say. Okay. All right. And one more time, go into your year view like this. English 4, Pop Culture Poetry. Boom, right there. Word choice annotations. Checkpoint 1. Clicking on the link at the top should look like this. And then you go to your little clipboard link up here at the top right. And then you want to scroll down till you see canonical poems like this. Then you click that, it'll bring you to this link right here. And then you should have both of them open. Okay? Because you're going to need this to fill out the checkpoint. Okay? So again, let me know in the chat when you have that pulled up. Give me a thumbs up. Tell me you got it. Whatever works. So I know that we are all ready to move on. Okay. Everybody, maybe like another minute or two. If you are having any issues finding it on Summit, let me know.
Can I get the second one again?
So when you have the checkpoint pulled up, in the top right hand corner, you should see a little icon that looks like a clipboard. Click on that clipboard icon and then scroll that list until you see, I'll put it in the chat too. So you see something that says canonical poems.
Yeah, I got canonical poems.
All right. And then click that, and then it should bring it up. And then I'll share my screen again here. Then you'll know you are good when you have this page pulled up and then this page pulled up, the canonical poems page, which looks like this. Okay. You should have those two things. All right. So Jair, I'm going to assume you got it. So everybody else, let me know when you have it pulled up so that I know you're good to go. All right. All right, how are we doing? Are we finding this? Do we need another minute or two? We're getting it pulled up. Yes, no. How we're doing? Do we have this pulled up again? It should look like. Should look like this, the checkpoint. And then you also want canonical poems, which looks like this. Okay. So again, let me know in the chat when you have this pulled up so I know everyone is good to go. All right. Actually, you're still on your phone. Okay, that's cool. Again, I know some of us might not be at our laptops this morning. That's fine. You can be listening, following along, and this will also be up on the YouTube later today. Okay. So we're going to keep moving here then. If you still don't have this pulled up, please try and do so. And again, if you are on your phone or you're unable to, then like I said, you can just be following along, listening, and the recording will be up on YouTube later today. So we have this checkpoint right here, checkpoint word choice annotations, right? In this checkpoint, you explore a number of poems that have been displayed in communities around the United States. You practice analyzing word choice and consider how the words' meanings have an effect on a community and share an important message, all right? It says choose 2 poems from the text selections resource and name your choices in the column for the table below. Annotate each poem using the instructions given in column 2, which is right here. And then take photos and paste your annotated poems in the document below in the table. Now, since we don't have paper copies of these, I know it says take photos. And I'll edit these directions in a second here. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to copy paste these poems and we're just going to highlight them. Okay. Now there's 3 boxes here. We're just going to do 2 of them, and then the third one can be like an extra credit opportunity for anybody who needs it. Okay. But what is going to be required for the checkpoint is just going to be 2 of these poems. Okay. And now, like it said, we're going to annotate them according to these directions. So you can see here and identify and explain the multiple meanings of the most powerful words and phrases. Explain how these words and phrases have an overall impact on the meaning of and tone of the poem, and consider how these words relate to the context or medium of the poem. And then explain why you think this poem was chosen to be displayed in a community. Okay. So identify and explain the multiple meanings of the most powerful words and phrases. Somebody tell me, what do you think you're doing for that one? All right. What are you going to be looking for this for when you're doing this first bullet point? You can tell me in the chat or over your mic. But what types of things would we be looking for when we're trying to figure out this first bullet point here? Any thoughts?
Multiple meanings of powerful words.
Yeah. So exactly. So what would that look like? What kinds of like things would you be looking for when you're doing that, Jair?
Like the definition of the word, or
Right.
uh,
Yeah, no, you're right. So you'd be looking at, okay, what's a word that could maybe mean one thing, but they also might be using it to mean another thing. We want to be doing that. And then
synonym.
exactly. And then we're gonna, so that's what we're doing for the first one. Good job. Second bullet point, explain how words and phrases have an overall impact on the meaning and tone of the poem. All right. So what do we think that means when we're saying these words have an overall impact on the meaning and tone of the poem? Right? Who can explain what we're going to be looking for in this bullet point for me? What would you be looking for, thinking about when you're trying to figure out this second bullet point? Explain the words, phrases, explain how these words, phrases have an overall impact on the meaning and tone of the poem. How can a word or phrase impact the meaning or tone of a poem? What would we be looking for here, maybe?
They feeling. How they feeling?
Right, exactly. How they make you feel. So if there's certain words or phrases that make you feel a certain way, make the poem feel a certain way, like give it a certain vibe, we would want to look for those words and explain how they do that. That's what we're looking for in this point. Good job. All right. Somebody's Xbox turned on.
No, it was already on.
All right. Third bullet point, consider how these words relate to the context or medium of the poem. This was might be a little bit tricky, but what we're doing here when we say context or medium, all right, do any of those words ring a bell to anybody? Anybody know what those words might mean? Have we heard them before? All right, if not, that's okay. Context or medium. So the context would be like what's happening historically at the time this poem comes out. So when it's written, what's happening in history at that time. All right. So for example, this first link here on our canonical poems is from William Shakespeare. So that's going to have a different context, a different historical context than a poem written, maybe in the 1960s, like a Sylvia Plath poem, like down here. Okay. So we want to think about that, and we also want to think about the medium. The medium would be like, was this a poem that was like painted on a mural? Was this a poem that was published in a book? What's the medium they use? Okay. And then lastly, explain why you think this poem was chosen to be displayed in a community. All right, because all of these poems we'll be choosing from will be poems that have been displayed publicly. So why do we think these poems deserve to be um, displayed publicly? Okay. So that is kind of a brief summary of what we're going to do for each one, how we're going to do it. Okay. What you'll do is, you can see here it says poem 1, poem 2. And again, remember, we're only going to focus on the first two. All right. In that resource that we have pulled up, our canonical poems, we see there's a link to each poem. So I can click on the link and it'll bring me to a copy of that poem, right? This one is Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, okay? Now, I'm going to do this as my example, right? So if I were using this poem, I would type that up here for the title, right? So I would say Sonnet 118, not 118. And then I would put the author, right? Shakespeare, okay? And then if I want to make it look neat, I can delete that, okay? Or I could even do it this way and highlight the whole thing and just type it in like this. Okay. So I put the title of the poem in here where it says poem 1, my poem selection. Now it says paste poem 1 here. So I want to go back to my copy, all right, that I clicked on from that link, and I highlight it like this. I'm gonna do it this way since I can't go up. Okay. And I Control C. I go back to my checkpoint. I can now what I do is I hit Control and then I hold down Shift as well, and then hit V, and that'll format it, into the way it already is. But you can just hit Control V or right click, hit paste, whatever you know how to do. That's just a little tip that I use. And Deja has joined us as well. Good morning, welcome. So now I have my poem pasted here. So now the last thing I'm going to do is start to annotate according to our reminders that we have up here that Jair helped explain for us. Okay. And you can see in this this example I have, somebody has annotated this same poem, and we can see kind of what they're doing. So they've underlined Summer's Day, and I'll try to zoom in even a little bit more than I already am. All right. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? All right. And they've underlined summers, and they've told us, okay, this suggests joy, warmth, perfection. Okay. They have circled this phrase here, too short a date, right? It says these three phrases highlight one flaw of summer. It passes and time passes and all things eventually die or end, much like this relationship, maybe. So we can see they're kind of drawing on that phrase right there. They have this phrase, eye of heaven. They're saying, okay, this is a metaphor meaning the sun. All right, so we can see an example of how they're annotating this. Now, this is like an A+ example of annotation. All right, so if yours is not quite this detailed, that's okay. But this gives you an idea of like, this is the pinnacle of what, a great annotation would look like. Okay. But now, like I said, we're going to do all this not by hand, but instead, by highlighting in here. So if I were going to try and do the same thing, I would do it this way in my checkpoint, where I would say, okay, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? All right. So I would say, okay, summer might convey, all right, just like they did in their annotation, and like we're, excuse me, like we're looking for in here, multiple meanings of the most powerful words, phrases, right? I think, okay, summer's day would be one. So I would highlight over that. And then I would come up here and make that yellow. Okay. And then maybe over here, I can, type a couple spaces, right? And then I give it a little star and I say this suggests warmth, kindness, perfection, etc. Okay? So I can do that way. Everybody with me so far on this, right? And if you're joining us a little bit late, we're working on checkpoint 1. It's on Summit, right? Word choice annotations right here. And then you also want to have open, if you scroll down, the canonical poems resource, okay? All right, but everybody with me so far? Any questions? Anybody totally lost? Okay. So I could annotate it that way, all right? And then on our annotation example, they had this phrase annotated. So if I were going to do that, on Summit, I could do it this way. I say too short a date, okay? I highlight this phrase. I make that yellow as well, okay? And then I go over here next to it again, and I'm just hitting tab there to do that, by the way. All right, I go over here next to it again, make another star, right? Right. This suggests that, like summer, the relationship will sadly come to an end. Okay. Now I don't want that highlighted, so I'm going to go back and take that highlight off. Right. No highlight. Okay. Right. And then I would keep doing that same thing as I go through the rest of the poem. All right. Looking for all of these things in the annotation reminders up here. Multiple meanings of words, how the words and phrases affect the meaning of the tone, how the words relate to the context of the poem. Okay. All right. And then lastly, why we think it was displayed in a community. So maybe, all right, we've kind of done the first two here. Now, maybe if I want to talk about context, I could say, I might highlight this part, all right, and say, all right, this type of language was common during Shakespeare's life in the 16th and 17th centuries. All right. Right. And if you want to, hit enter, like if your annotation runs over like that, you can hit enter so I know where the annotation stops and the poem keeps going, if that helps. Right. And then lastly, maybe I hit enter once again, and then here I say, I think this poem was chosen to be displayed in a community because, all right, and then you would finalize that, complete sentences, and now you've done the first box. Okay, so that's how you kind of go about tackling this. All right. So if you want to do yours, a little bit different, like maybe if you want to use different colors for these different types of things, like if you want to do multiple meanings in yellow, and then you want to highlight, words that affect the meaning and the tone, you want to highlight those in purple, and then, tell me what each color means, somewhere down here, that's fine too, whatever you want to do. But you can do it just like I did mine, as an example. Okay. So what you're going to do, ladies and gents, is you're going to pick two poems of your own. The only one you can't do is the Shakespeare one, since I used that for my example. Okay. And you'll find them from this canonical poems section. You can click the link to get to a copy of the poem that you'll be able to copy and paste. Right. If for some reason the link doesn't work, just use a different one. Okay. Right. You're going to pick two of those. You're going to put the title up here where it says my selection. You're going to copy paste it into the box, and then you're going to annotate it accordingly based on these reminders. And again, if you've been in class with us when we've been talking about word choice and the things we're looking for when we're annotating for word choice, then this should be pretty easy. Okay. If you are a little bit behind and some of this isn't ringing a bell, then I would recommend you go back on the Yes Philly YouTube, watch some of the classes from last week, and or come to the Summit Lab in the afternoon, get some kind of one-on-one help. All right. So the rest of the time today is going to be for you guys to get started on this. All right. We have about a little more than 10 minutes left. So I will check back in about 10 minutes. And then we can kind of wrap up. If you have questions as you're working, please give me a shout or put it in the chat. All right?
You do the office hour things?
Yeah, so those are every day from 1 to 3. So I will be doing them today and tomorrow, because then we are on break. Okay, so from 1 to 3, and it's the same link that you use for class. So the
we
same
going
link
break tomorrow?
after class. Yeah, so the last day of classes is tomorrow, and then winter break until January 4th, I believe. All right. So if you want to come to the Summit Lab, feel free. It's the same link that you used to get to this class today. All right. Other questions about anything else? All right, cool. Well, I will let you guys try and get started on this. This is what I'm going to be looking for throughout the break. So as you finish this, please request feedback on Summit, right? This checkpoint should be done by the time we come back from break. And that means, like, when I see you in class the first day after break, it should already be finished, not like, okay, we'll also take that class to get it finished. All right. So that should be more than enough time to get this done. Okay. You're only doing those 2 poems, 3 if you want a little extra credit. Okay. So I'm going to be looking at this throughout break. I'll probably be updating people's colors on this maybe at the end of the week this week. Right. So if you get this finished or as you work on it, don't forget to request feedback so I know that you are working on this. Okay. So go ahead and get started on it now. I'll check back in about 10 minutes and we will wrap up for today. All right. Good job. All right, y'all. Looks like we got a couple people that have made their way out of here early. That's okay though. So just to recap before we leave, checkpoint 1, word choice annotations. You're picking 2 poems from the Canonical Poems resource, also on Summit under checkpoint 1, and then annotating them accordingly, like I showed you in my example. If you missed it or you were doing more than one thing this morning, class will be up on YouTube later today, so you can go back and watch there to refresh your memory on how to do it. If you're still struggling, please don't be afraid to come to the Summit Lab later today or tomorrow. Last 2 before the break, all right? And remember, you only want to do 2 poems. Don't need to worry about the third box. If you want to do the third box, there might be some extra credit involved in there for you, okay? Questions about anything? All right, then we have 1 minute left. What I'd like you to do for me, please, is give me a 1 to 5 in the chat of your understanding with the checkpoint and what you need to do. So 5 being like, yep, I got it. I know what I need to do. I just got to get to it. I don't need any help. 3 would be like kind of half and half. Like, I think I'm okay. Maybe I might need some help here or there, but I should be good. 1 would be like, I'm pretty lost. I'm a little behind. I might need to get some one-on-one, come to the Summit Lab, whatever you need. Think about it and give me your response in the chat, 1 to 5. How do you, what's your understanding with the checkpoint? How do you feel about what you need to do? Put that in the chat for me. Once you put it in the chat, then you will be good to go today. All right. But I'd like to see one from everybody that's still in here before we leave, because that helps me, helps you. Okay. Jair, I got yours. Thank you. So Relisha, Ashley, if you can give me yours as well, then you guys are good to go. All right. Have a great holiday break. Enjoy it. Stay safe. Merry Christmas if you celebrate, to those of you who do. And I will see you, unless I have you for class tomorrow, I will see you after the break. All right. So Relisha, Ashley, still need your 1 to 5. Jair, you're good to go. Ms. Kat, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, happy holidays to you as well. All right, I will stay in the chat for about another maybe 2 minutes in case anybody has questions. If not, then you guys are good to go. Have a good break, guys. Thank you. Good job.